dyno is typically superior to what we would call a ground tune or a street tune using auto tune is with the dyno you control the environment pretty much completely. Now you can't completely control air temperature, I mean that just kind of is what it is, but you control the environment, you control what happens on the motorcycle, you control what happens around the motorcycle. You don't have to worry about getting run over by somebody's grandma, who's half asleep. You are in control of that vehicle. So if you want to add load, as long as you have a load cell dyno, you can increase the amount of load that's on the vehicle, make it act like it's pulling a hill, make it act like it's on level surface, whatever it is, on command at any given throttle position, RPM, any given load, just depends on what it is you're attempting to achieve, what it is you're trying to ferret out, what kind of problem it is you're chasing. So when you're on the street, you got wind in your ears, you're just riding, you're not seeing the information in a live way, so what you're actually seeing isn't really what's going on. You go back and review the data, you go back and look at it, and depending upon the tuning device that you're using, you can only see so many things. So a common misconception on a lot of these older tuners is that you can see all the information, and that's not the case. Typically what you can see is what the computer-generated algorithm wanted to do, okay? Meaning it wanted to add fuel, it wanted to take fuel. Very few systems actually give you a add or subtract from ignition timing, very few. But that being said, basically what you can see is what the computer algorithm thought it should do. Now the issue with that is that I understand that if you've ever played chess against a computer, you realize that the computer will beat you almost every time. I mean, you got to be somebody to beat a computer consistently. But when it comes to tuning, if you are experienced, you will discover that you can beat the computer 99% of the time. Now, if you're not an experienced tuner, okay, I understand. Go ahead, use that auto-tune feature and let it do what it does, and at least you'll be generally roughly in the ballpark. You'll be close. And it's even sometimes that's nice just to get you there, just to get you to a general rough area. Now, the issue becomes is that a lot of these systems, when you're utilizing a wideband O2 sensor, which sounds perfect because it typically reads from about 10 air fuel, which is rich, all the way up to about 18 air fuel, which is lean. Okay, now there's different systems, there's different sensors used, and they all react differently. But typically what happens is if that system sees a reading that is beyond the capabilities of the sensor, in most cases it does nothing. Okay? Because it doesn't know what it should do. Now, to me, if I see a reading that's richer than 10 or richer than, just basically richer than I want it to be, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to pull fuel. If I see a reading that is leaner than I want it to be, I'm going to go in and add fuel. Now, the sensor can do that, or the system can do that given the information that it sees across the sensor. But a lot of times the information across the sensor is not 100% accurate. And when you're tuning, you use your ear as much as anything to notice the pitch change in the engine. You can hear a lean or a rich condition before the sensor will display it. When you've tuned a lot, you can hear the engine change. You can hear the pitch change in the exhaust note before you ever see the sensor respond. You can typically hear it before you can see it. And then, a half second or so after, you'll see it show on the sensor, and as long as it goes with what you thought you heard, then you make the change. And if it argues with what you thought you heard, then you might try something one way or the other. You might go the opposite way the sensor tells you to go, because oftentimes I've discovered that that will be the case because that sensor's lagging a little bit. You know, if it weren't, you wouldn't be able to really read it. But you can hear it before you can see it. And I don't know how to explain that other than once you're experienced and you do a lot of tuning, that's how it works. And I bet I'm not the only person out there that will tell you that. As far as data logging, some of the modern ECUs out there, like an impact ECU, you can actually go back with finite detail and review the information, the data of what was happening to the vehicle while you were riding it either on the street or on the dyno. You can actually go back in and review that log. You can see throttle positions, load, RPM, air-fuel ratios, ignition timing, and every other thing about the way the engine was running that you would ever want to see. So, you know, on that, yes, they have an auto-tune feature on it as well, and yes, it works the same basic way. It tries to predict and make changes, and that's fine, and it works pretty well, but it's not perfect either. I mean, all of these systems work best with some human interaction, and thus the reason your tuner is important. When I say tuner, I mean an individual. So I'm not saying that these systems won't operate without a person, because many of them will. But if you want the best results, find yourself an experienced tuner to manipulate that system and actually get you the best result. So, all right, y'all. Hopefully that didn't bore you to death. Take care and never forget what's important.